Chapter 411, The Awkwardness at the Table. He turned his head and woke his son up, patting his shoulder lightly. "Son, your wife is here. Look, are you satisfied?" Zuko opened his small eyes weakly and looked around. When he saw Lan Anran, he was instantly energized. "Wife, I want a wife. She is so pretty." He staggered to his feet and walked towards Anran. Zuko Shing hurriedly pulled him over and smiled. "Silly son, this is your wife." Zuko turned and looked at Yaxin with a smile. "This wife is pretty too. I want both." Yaxin looked at the greasy man in front of her in disgust. Everyone said that the son from the Zoo family was silly, but now she saw that the son wasn't just silly. He was also ugly, completely incomparable to Jinrong. "Take a seat. Don't keep standing there." Zuko Shing smiled and looked at his daughter-in-law with satisfaction. The group sat down around the round table and he waved his hand to the waiter. "Bring me the best food here. I can afford it." Zuko Shing waved his hand, looking like a Noviri. "I don't know what you like to eat, so I told him to bring out the best food that they have here. You can pick out whatever you want. If you're not satisfied, we can order again." Shi Yanqian was very satisfied. She looked at Zuko Shing, who was wearing a large gold chain and almost every finger was full of rings. Some were nephrite rings, while others were jade rings. All in all, he looked very rich. The woman behind him was also wearing heavy makeup, and a bag she carried was at least worth hundreds of thousands. Not to mention the jewelry and clothes she was wearing. "Boss Zhu, my daughter is well behaved, sensible, obedient, good-looking, and smart in school. She comes in first every year, and there is no doubt about her genes. You can be rest assured." Don't worry. I can see that your daughter is very smart. Actually, my son wasn't stupid after he was born. It was just that his mother had a difficult delivery. My son was quite pitiful. He was born after a prolonged labor. It was already very good that he was still alive. In addition, his mother was dead the moment he was born, and I was busy with my business back then. The child had a high fever in the middle of the night, and I didn't have time to bring him to the hospital before his brain was fried. But don't worry, my son is very obedient and will treat others well. If your daughter marries over, she'll definitely won't suffer. Liu Yuxing continued to compliment his son. "I believe that my daughter won't suffer. The Zhu family is such a prestigious family that it is difficult to find one that is unlike this one in the marriage market. So how could we despise him? Although we're a relative to the Mo family, our family composition isn't good and my maternal family is very poor. Hence, when I married into the family, I didn't bring any dowries. Her father is unfortunately in jail again, but don't worry, it isn't a serious crime and he'll be released in 2 years. Our family is a little poor now, so I hope you don't mind." Shi Yanqian was also very smart. She confessed everything now to avoid future trouble. "Don't worry, we don't mind. We will send you the betrothal gifts according to the traditional rules. You don't have to worry about this. My son's marriage will definitely shock the entire city. We will definitely not mistreat your daughter." That's good. My daughter is unusually very bright and willful. I hope that you'll forgive her when that happens." Shi Yanqian smiled and said, "My silly son needs someone to take care of him. Usually even the nannies keep an eye on him, and he often goes out to play behind our backs. Usually I find him pitiful, so I indulge him a little. I'm very sorry about his physique today." Zhu Guxing was very polite when he said this. He secretly straightened his son's posture, hoping that the others would see that his son was energetic. "Uncle Zhu, your son looks very listless today. Is he ill?" Yaxin spoke deliberately. As soon as the words left her mouth, Shi Yanqian pinched her. "Of course not. He's just a little tired. Perhaps he was too excited after I told him that he was going to have a wife, and he didn't sleep well the entire night." Zhu Guxing helped his son up again and look. Isn't your wife beautiful? Your wife is a beauty." Zuko immediately perked up and wanted to hug Yaxin. Zuko Xing hurriedly pulled him over. Good son, you can't hug now. You can only hug after you're married. When are we getting married? I want to get married now. Zukun shouted loudly, attracting the attention of many people. Yaksen was embarrassed. Mr. Zhu, they are our family's in-laws. You must treat them well. After the marriage, cooperation between the two families will be intimate. Old Mrs. Mo warned. Of course, as long as Yaksen marries over, we will give her whatever she wants. But only if she gives birth to a big, fat grandson for me. Zuko Xing wasn't afraid of being ridiculed, as he spoke plainly. Don't worry, my daughter is in good health. She can give birth to 10 grandchildren, not to mention one big fat one. Xu Yanshan smiled and said, but outsiders say that your son can't do such things. Yaksen continued speaking, and Xu Yanshan glared at her fiercely. Zuko Xing's expression changed and he spoke angrily. Yaksen, don't listen to those people's nonsense. There isn't anything wrong with my son's health. It's just a flaw in his intelligence. Those people outside are just jealous of our family. You will know once you marry into our family. At this moment, the waiters took turns serving the food from behind. The fragrance of the food immediately pierced Zukun's nose. He suddenly rushed forward as if he was on steroids, picking up a plate of roasted chicken and stuffing it into his mouth ravenously. His eyes were fierce, as if he hadn't eaten in a long time. Roasted chicken. I want to eat roasted chicken. His mouth was full of roasted chicken, and he couldn't care less about what others thought. Zuko Xing immediately pulled his son down when he saw this, but his son was too fat. With a backhanded push, his son pushed him to the ground. Roasted chicken. I want to eat roasted chicken. Zukin wolfed down the roasted chicken, stuffing it into his mouth. He didn't even spit out the bones. But when he was halfway through the roasted chicken, he grabbed the fish and meat on the table with his fat hands, leaving behind leftovers. Old Mrs. Mo hurriedly retracted after seeing this. She had never seen anyone eat like this. Yaksen, don't mind him. Actually, before you came, I had starved him for 2 days, wanting him to slim down. I didn't expect this child. Zuko Xing was a little embarrassed and hurriedly got someone to pull his son down. But Zukun was too big, and no one could move him. He finished the food in his mouth and saw that he wasn't able to reach the food in the distance, so he stepped on a chair and climbed onto the table, wolfing down everything. All the hindrances and excesses plates fell to the ground, attracting the attention of many people. Chapter 412, Drunk. The waiter hurried over and looked at them with disgust. Sir, you can't eat on the dining table. We have guests here and you have disturbed their meal. You'll have to compensate for the things on the floor. Zukun ignored this and continued to climb onto the table to eat the food in his current bowl. Zuko Xing was really embarrassed. He kept apologizing to the waiter and got the people behind him to pull his son down. He comforted his son and said, if you continue to behave like this, your wife won't want you anymore and will leave. Zukun looked at Yaksen and was momentarily dazed. He got down obediently and sat down while the service staff cleaned the leftovers and broken plates. Sorry, can you serve another identical dish? I will pay for these. My son is mentally challenged. Don't blame him. Zuko Xing said as he pulled his son. Yaksen despised him. How could she marry such a fool? She looked at her mother, but Xu Yanshan felt that this fool was very obedient and her daughter could control him. Mom, you... Don't talk. He's pretty easy to control. He won't suffer after marrying him, she whispered in her daughter's ear. Xu Yanshan thought highly of this fool because he listened to his wife very well. There wouldn't be any problems. This is the effect Ayn Rand wanted. It was directly better than killing Yaksen. Life worse than death was the best torture method. Yaksen didn't speak. She knew that she had been tricked. She looked at old Mrs. Mo and Ayn Rand sitting at the side, enjoying themselves. She couldn't bear to see that they were watching her make a fool of herself. Just then, the service staff served another table of identical dishes. Yaksen stood up and smiled at Zukun. Young Master Zhu, shall we have a glass of wine? Her mother was overjoyed, thinking that her daughter had been enlightened. After eating and drinking, Zukun was almost full. He looked up at his wife and forced a smile. Drink. My wife wants a drink? Zukun grabbed the bottle of wine and drank it directly. Before Yaxin could finish her own glass of wine, the other party spat at her. What a silly son! Why did you drink so much? Zhu Guoxing immediately wiped his son's mouth with the tissue. Yaxin was sprayed with white wine all over her face. She couldn't bear it anymore and directly threw all the white wine in her hand to Zhu Kun's face. Yaxin, what are you doing? Shi Yanchen immediately pulled her down, her expression changing. If my wife asks me to drink, I'll drink. You're not allowed to scold her. Zhu Kun wiped the wine off his face and smiled. Look at how caring this child is to people. They aren't even married yet, and he's already protecting his wife. She answered and smiled and said, In my opinion, it doesn't go wrong if she marries over. In-laws, you found the right person. Omisano smiled. Grandma, what do you say? If you think he's the right person, you can go ahead and marry him. You're still young and should be able to give birth to a boy or two after marriage. Why are you here targeting me? Yaxin spoke as though she was drunk. What are you saying, in-law? Don't mind her, she's drunk. Shi Yanshan's expression grew grimmer and grimmer. How did she become like this after a glass of wine? I'm not drunk. Introducing me to a fool is just an insult to me. Yaxin held a glass of wine and drank it. She started to become drunk as she talked nonsense. Mrs. Xu, what happened to the child? Zhu Guoxing looked up with dissatisfaction. But his son was already in such a state, so he couldn't blame others. After all, he still wanted Yaxin to be his daughter-in-law, and wanted her to be the relatives of the Mo family. Mr. Zhu, don't take it to heart. My daughter drank too much and spoke nonsense. She'll be fine after she sobers up. She can't hold her liquor well. Shi Yanchen hurriedly pulled her daughter back and sat down. She pinched her and glared at her, wanting her not to fool around anymore. My wife is drunk. I want to hug her to sleep. I want to hug my wife. Zhu Kun noticed that Yaxin seemed a little drunk, so he spoke again. Silly son, don't move. Be good, and you can hug your wife to sleep. Zhu Guoxing started to coax his son again. I'm not marrying him. I'm not marrying him. Yaxin started to yell loudly, attracting even more attention to the table. Anran and old Mrs. Lo were a little embarrassed, so Anran spoke first. Yaxin, don't be agitated. I don't think the two families will be engaged as so soon. You can try to get along with him first, Sister Zhu. I think you should let my sister get along with your son first. She can make a decision after knowing your son's temperament. Since Yaxin is very resistant now, she'll only marry after she figured it out herself. Besides, young Master Zhu isn't going anywhere. Old Mrs. Mo smiled as she said, the marriage between the Mo family and the Zhu family is only a matter of time. Mr. Zhu, you don't have to be so anxious. Yaxin is a girl after all, and should consider her marriage carefully. Let's end the meeting here. I've thought about it. A girl's marriage is equivalent to a lifetime. But you don't have to worry about that, Mr. Zhu. There isn't anyone more suitable than the Zhu family. Zhu Guoxing nodded. He didn't want to continue to be an embarrassment here either. His son had made him infamous today. Besides, the Zhu family was big and powerful. They weren't worried that the Lan family wouldn't agree. Yes, a girl's marriage is a lifetime matter. You can go back and think about it. My son is useless and has made things difficult for you. Zhu Guoxing stood up and took out the black card for Aunt Lu to foot the bill. Shi Yanshan's eyes were full of smiles. She agreed to this marriage anyway, so her daughter had to marry regardless of how unwilling she was. After leaving the Autumn Museum, Yaxin was dragged into the car by Xu Yanshan. You brat, what exactly were you trying to do? Why are you so dissatisfied about this and that? This is such a good marriage and you almost ruined it. Your dad's in prison waiting for you to become rich. She pointed to her daughter's forehead and scolded. Mom, he's a fool. He eats like a pig. Hasn't he seen food before? He climbed onto the table, picked up the food, and started eating. It's so embarrassing. I don't want to marry such a silly and fat pig. Yaxin was extremely resistant to Zhu Kun. She was a school beauty and the top student after all. How could she marry such a fool? A spineless coward. I've said it before, you don't care about his appearance. It's enough that he's rich. Why do you care so much? As long as you're rich, who will look down on you? Shi Yanshan cursed. Chapter 413, Extortion. Mom, I really don't want to marry anyone. Yaxin begged Shi Yanshan repeatedly, as she did not want to marry a fool. Anyan looked at her quietly with a smile, not saying anything. She knew that it would be like this. If it were anyone else, they would definitely accept the honor. But Yaxin was a proud person, and doing so would undoubtedly be a humiliation to her. She couldn't accept it unless it was a last resort. Even if she accepted the marriage, her life in the future wouldn't be up to her. How can a girl not marry? I chose the best marriage for you. Why don't you understand me? Forget it. You'll understand in the future. After you're married, you'll understand my good intentions. After she returned home, Yaxin complained about Zukun to Zhao Shumi. Grandma, that person is worse than pigs and dogs. I don't want to marry that fool. Grandma, save me. Yaxin cried exactly the same way as when she was about to marry Mo Jinrong. When I asked you to marry Mo Jinrong, you weren't willing and were sobbing profusely. You gave such a good opportunity to Ayn Rand, but now you're crying again? I found an identical marriage, so why are you unwilling? What exactly do you want? Shi Yanshan was furious just thinking about it. That opportunity should have been Yaxin's, and if she had agreed, she would have become the young lady of the Mo family. That woman wouldn't have the chance to flaunt herself in front of her. Who knew that Jinrong was pretending? But Zukun is really silly. Mom, you can't push me into this fiery pit, Yaxin cried. What do you mean by pushing you into a fiery pit? I'm your biological mother. Would I harm you? I'm guiding you towards the blessed path. Why are you so disobedient? Mom, this child humiliated me in public. She almost ruined the marriage. Why can't I scold her? Shi Yanshan said furiously. Zhao Shumi had no choice but to pat her shoulders. Good granddaughter. I didn't have a good idea either. Back then, I really didn't know Mo Jinrong was such a person, but it's too late for regrets now. The son of the Zhu family might be silly, but your mom said that he dotes on his wife. Wouldn't that be better than any man? Listen to me, and marry into that family obediently. It'll be better than marrying into the Mo family and become a young mistress. Yaxin looked up at her grandmother with tears in her eyes. She finally understood that no one could help her now. Only she could. How could you say that? How could you bear for your dearest granddaughter to marry a fool? Marry him if you want to. I don't want to marry that fool. Why are you so insensible? I have already said to them all the good things and bad things. Can you think about your mom and dad? Your dad is still in jail and he's waiting to come out to live in a big house. There isn't even any food in the house. What else do you want? Shi Yanshan was furious. She had put on so much effort for her daughter's sake, but her daughter didn't understand her at all. Am I going to be your mother-making tool? The moment Yaxin finished speaking, Shi Yanshan slapped her. You idiot! You don't have any conscience. I spent so much effort on this matter. How dare you speak to me like this? Yaxin covered her face with her hand and cried helplessly. At this moment, she didn't want to say anything, so she could only open the door and run out helplessly. Go! Don't even come back! This is outrageous. You don't have a say in this family. You have to marry him no matter what, Shi Yanshan yelled out. Yanshan, how could you hit her like that? Zhao Shumi said furiously. Mom, she needs to be educated. I spent so much effort to get her married into the young master of the Zhu family, but she doesn't appreciate it. Do you know why she can't beat that woman? It's because she's stupid and arrogant. It wasn't easy to find a marriage that could bring us glory, but she isn't willing. She can't run far and will be back soon. Shi Yanshan didn't chase after her, as she was frustrated enough. Yaxin is young and impulsive. She definitely wouldn't be willing to marry a fool. This was felicitated by that brat. Is there a problem? Sashimi was a little worried. After all, that brat was full of evil tricks, and had never treated them kindly. I think the young master of the Zhu family is a good person. If she really wanted to trick us, she wouldn't have introduced such a good thing to us. I don't know. This doesn't seem like a good thing. After all, that person is a fool no matter how you look at it. Yaxin is at a disadvantage. Sashimi calculated internally and spoke. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Shi Yanshan smiled and said, What did I say? She'll be back soon. She instead took her time to open the door. "You brat, you only know how to run." "Hey." Shi Yanshan's face fell. "Who is it?" Zhao Shimi asked in confusion. "Oh, Mrs. Lan, how has your health been recently?" It was old Wang at the door. He hadn't been here to disturb them in a long time. This family had probably forgotten about him, right? "What are you doing here?" Zhao Shimi glanced at him angrily and saw that he was wearing a large gold chain and had gold teeth. She was furious. He must have brought these things with the money he had got from threatening them. "Sis-in-law, old Mrs. Lan, I haven't been coming to look for you recently, so you must have forgotten about me. Don't you know how to transfer money when the time is right? My money is tight, so I came to look for you." Old Wang smiled, showing his big golden teeth. These things were brought with Lan Tingyi's money. He hadn't come to find them in the past few months because his mother had died in an illness. He had been silent for a while, and in the last moments of his mother's life, he let her enjoy the luxuries she hadn't enjoyed before. Old Wang felt that it was worth it. His mother had passed away, and he still lived in the house she left behind. He didn't have any money and was thinking of coming to find Tingyi again. "You shameless thing, you dare to come over? How dare you threaten us when you haven't finished your job? Don't you know that Tingyi is in jail? If you want money, go find him. I don't have any. We don't even have any rice to cook, so I don't have any extra money for you." Shi Yanshan was about to close the door when old Wang stopped her. "Sis-in-law, you can't be saying like that. I know he's in jail, but he still has his wife and child, right? Don't you know that it's customary for his son to pay for his father's debts? So your daughter can make money to repay the debt." Old Wang continued to speak wretchedly. Chapter 414, Lost Her Virginity. "I saw you get out of the car just now, and you look like a rich person, so don't lie to me. If you have money, hurry up and give it to me. Don't delay your payment, or I will really report you to the police. When the time comes, you and your husband will both be in jail, and it will be a great scene," Old Wang threatened. Although it had been a long time, as long as he went to the police station and confessed, Tingyi's jail term would be another 10 years added into kidnapping. But he would be released in a few months because he just covered up the crime. He wasn't afraid of going to jail, but Shi Yanshan wouldn't dare to call the police. "Shameless, you have feet, but you don't know how to work. All you know is how to threaten us. Call the police then." Zhao Shimi was furious. Even if she was rich, she wouldn't hand over the money. "I'll call the police then. Kidnapping charges have a jail term for at least 10 years. Your family will be in for a treat when Brother Lan finally comes out of jail, only to realize that you went into jail too." Old Wang pretended to leave when Shi Yanshan called out to him. "Mom, no, I can't go to jail. Old Wang, look, we have nothing left. I can only rely on my daughter. When my daughter is married and I receive the money, I will give it to you. Please don't call the police." Old Wang turned and smiled. He knew it. "Wouldn't it have been better if you said that earlier? Your daughter is indeed pretty. Don't forget about me when she marries into the rich family. Give me a date, and I'll come to collect the money on that day." "I don't know yet, but the entire city will definitely know that my daughter is getting married." Shi Yanshan spoke confidently. "Then I'll have to raise the price. She seems to be marrying into a rich family. Brother Lan didn't raise her in vain." Old Wang smiled. "Get out if you know what's good for you." Shi Yanshan closed the door as she was frustrated just by looking at him. "It can't go on like this forever. Who can stand being threatened every day?" Zhao Shimi spat at the door as she was disgusted by him. "Mom, you should persuade Yaxin. If she doesn't get married, Old Wang will come over to threaten us every day. Tingyi has gone to jail and he can't control anything here. I'm the only one supporting this family, and I'm a woman. So how could I bear this?" Shi Yanshan felt like she was breaking down. "I'll tell her when she gets back." Zhao Shimi sighed, feeling a little helpless. Yaxin ran to the bar alone to get drunk. She didn't have the ability to decide for her life and felt frustrated. This is all because of Anran. Her perfect life started to deteriorate because of her appearance. If it weren't for her, she wouldn't have missed Mojin Rong. If it weren't for her, she wouldn't have to marry a fool. If it weren't for her, she wouldn't have become a laughingstock amongst her classmates. It was all her fault. Anran, I won't forgive you even if I become a ghost. Yaxin drank another glass of wine as she thought this. She was already tipsy and could only numb herself with alcohol. Suddenly, someone appeared beside her and snatched her glass away. Yaxin looked up in a daze. "Who are you? Why are you stealing my wine?" She could only feel her head spinning and she was in a daze as she mistook the person in front of her for Jinrong. "Miss Lan, it's bad for you to drink so much. Why don't you come home with me?" Tan Lin smiled. He happened to be in this bar discussing business with Mo Shengli when he saw Yaxin, who was getting drunk alone, and he had an idea. Yaxin swung his hand away. "Why should I? Who are you? Pass me the wine. I want to drink." Yaxin just wanted to drink. "Boss Tan, I didn't expect you to be interested in her." Shengli walked over and said, "She's just a stupid girl. I'm not interested in her. She came to me twice because she wanted to mess with Jinrong, but she was too stupid to defeat that old fox. She wasted 2 of my bottles of medicine." Tan Lin looked at Yaxin and said, "Based on what I know, she has already arranged to marry the fool from the neighboring city. No wonder she's drinking alone. I have an idea, though," Shangli said. He could accept anyone who wanted to take down Jinrong. "Boss Mo, are you trying to help her?" Tan Lin said. "I'm trying to help myself. Jinrong is going abroad on a business trip and will be back after a half month. When Jinrong comes back, she would have married the fool next door. Now I want to break Anren and Jinrong. Yaxin is a good fuse." Shangli smiled evilly. "Boss Mo, you're really unscrupulous in order to win. Fortunately, we're not enemies. What should we do about this girl?" Tan Lin said. Mo Shengli could read his thoughts and said, "You have to convince her to marry that fool from the Zhu family for the time being. When Jinrong comes back from abroad, I have a way to put her in his bed. You can do whatever you want tonight, but it has nothing to do with me." As expected, Boss Mo understands me. Tan Lin helped Yaxin out. Yaxin was mumbling about drinking. "I want to drink. I want to drink. Give me some wine. Where are you taking me?" Yaxin was still slightly conscious and pushed him away. "I'm taking you home. It's dangerous for a young lady like you to drink so much outside," Tan Lin said as he pretended to be a gentleman. "I don't want to go home. I don't have a home. They treat me like a money-making tool. I have a father who's in jail and a greedy mother. That's not my home. I don't want to go home." Yaxin cried and said, "Then I'll take you back to my house. Let's go back." Tan Lin coaxed her into the car. Li Shishi ended work at this time and she couldn't get through to him on the phone, so she personally drove over to his house. Tan Lin took Yaxin to a hotel and booked a room. He threw Yaxin on the bed and went to the bathroom to take a shower. When he came out of the shower, Yaxin had taken off most of my clothes. In her opinion, she would rather give her virginity to a normal man than that fool. After all, there wasn't a single person who loved her. Nor was there anyone she loved either. "Seems like you're more anxious than me." Tan Lin pounced on her fiercely. After an hour, Tan Lin ended the current bout reluctantly and saw more than 20 missed calls from Li Shishi. This woman is so annoying. Tan Lin called her back reluctantly. "Sweetheart, I was busy and didn't see your calls. Did something happen to our baby?" Tan Lin was anxious and concerned. Li Shishi was dissatisfied when he asked about his son first. "You only know how to ask about your child every day. Do you have me in your heart? Let me ask you, what were you doing? Why didn't you pick up my calls?" Chapter 415, Discovering an Affair. Tan Lin thought for a moment and came up with a reason. "Honey, I told you, I'm busy. I'm with my father. He hasn't been well in the past 2 days, so I came to see him and report the matters about the company. My phone was on silent mode, so I couldn't hear your call." "Nonsense. I'm at your house. I just came out and your father was inquiring me about my well-being too. So where are you doing?" Li Shishi could tell that he was lying. There was definitely something wrong with his words. I was busy with the company's matters and just came out of my father's house." As soon as he finished speaking, Yaxin made some muffled sounds. "Is that a woman beside you? I heard a woman's voice just now. Are you lying to me? Are you seeing another woman behind my back? Where are you? I want to see which vixen is in your bed." Li Shishi was a little agitated. She had clearly heard a woman's voice just now. There aren't any women around. I'm busy with work. Bye. Tan Qilin was a little nervous. In the past, he would have been very annoyed with her, but now that Li Shishi was pregnant with his son, and if he wasn't careful, his son would be gone. He was still hoping that his son would help him establish himself in the Tan family. The accent was still in a daze, and Tan Qilin couldn't resist the temptation, leaning over to hug her again. Meanwhile, Li Shishi was furious. She didn't know which vixen was seducing her man. Her newly established position was instantly taken over just like that. She had to find that woman. The position as the young madam of the Tan family would definitely be hers. She asked Tan Qilin's assistant about the vixen that he was getting close to, but the assistant couldn't recall Tan Qilin having a woman by his side at all. In his impression, he was quite dedicated, so he didn't have any clues of her. Li Shishi had no choice but to stay in the house until he returned home. She waited until dawn, but there was still no sign of him. Tan Qilin and Yaxin woke up early in the morning. Yaxin was surprised by what happened yesterday. When she saw herself lying with Tan Qilin without any clothes, she knew what had happened last night. She didn't dare to face such a matter. After all, she was still a child in her mother's eyes. Don't be nervous. I'll take responsibility. You were especially provocative. You took off all of your clothes, and I had no choice but to raise to the challenge. Now you can only listen to me and cooperate with me, so that you can have a chance to take revenge. Of course, you can also choose to be my lover. I felt great yesterday, too. Would you consider it? Mojin Rong's business trip abroad will take half a month. In this half a month, you'll have to try your best to drag out the marriage with the fool in the neighboring city. If you marry that fool in half a month, you don't have any hope of revenge. When Jinrong comes back, I will have a way to send you to his bed. As long as he doesn't mind what happened today, I'm willing to share you with him. Yaxin suddenly felt dirty, even disgusted. You bastard! I'm not going to cooperate with you, much less become your lover. Yaxin struggled out of bed, only to find her legs and entire body were sore. It could be seen what he had done to her yesterday. Then you have no hope for revenge. Pretend that we haven't seen each other today. Tan Qilin wore his clothes and was about to leave. Yaxin thought that since things had come to this, she couldn't just give herself away for nothing. Wait a minute, are you sure you can help me? Yaxin looked at him skeptically. Who else can trust any other man than me? Like I said, I don't mind as long as he doesn't mind. Tan Qilin said. Disgusting. Yaxin couldn't stand the way that he was behaving and couldn't stand the way he was flaunting his prowess in front of her. Yaxin, what do you think this is? Tan Qilin held his phone and showed her some photos. Yaxin became agitated. She didn't expect him to take nude photos of her. If you don't want to listen to me, I'll send these naked photos of you to your mom. If that fool of the Zhu family finds out that his fiancée is such a person, do you still think he'll want you? The Zhu family isn't the only one who doesn't want you. The Mo family will despise you as well, and your biological will despise you. You bastard, I won't marry a fool, so let's keep it a secret. Yaxin swung herself around and left. The humiliation and the disgust in her heart surged. She must have had a stroke yesterday for something like that to happen between her and that man. When Tan Qilin returned home, he saw Li Shishi looking at him angrily. Where did you go yesterday? I waited the entire night for you, but you didn't come back. Were you trying to tell me that you were working late in the night, so you couldn't come back? I really was working overtime yesterday. It was too late at night, so I finished and I thought I'd be disturbing you, so I stayed outside for the night. Honey, did you wait the entire night for me? It's not good for you. The baby will be upset. Li Shishi was sick of Tan Qilin bringing up his child with every word and showing that he didn't care about her at all. I heard a woman's voice yesterday. Don't try to deny it. I heard it clearly. Who is that vixen? How long have you known each other? What were you doing back there? Were you with that woman last night? Tan Qilin was really annoyed by this woman. Her nagging was like a buzzing fly in his ears, annoying him. I wasn't with a woman yesterday. You heard wrongly. That was someone else's voice when I went out to eat yesterday. I only love you, my wife. Li Shishi didn't believe his nonsense and started to smell his soup. She suddenly found a long strand of hair in his suit, along with the scent of perfume. Don't try to fool me. This long hair isn't mine. You really do have a mistress.